taking the ACT test this Saturday and need to increase your math score very quickly, here are 5 things to try this Saturday that doesn't take a lot of prep, but it can significantly increase your math score. So number 1 is check your timing and your pacing. So the math section for standard timing on the ACT math test is 60 questions and you have 60 minutes. So on average, you are going to spend, or I guess you are allotted 1 minute per question. But realistically, what happens is people get spun up on a couple of questions, spend like 5 to 10 minutes wasting time on a problem, and then they're having to guess on a ton of answers. So this is what I would do instead if you are taking the test soon and your ACT math score is a little bit low. So instead of trying to answer every single problem correctly, focus on the ones that you do know. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it helps a lot. Is I would start out with the number 1 and keep going. And as long as you're only spending about 1 to 2 minutes per question, keep pushing through. Now, let's say you get to number 33 and you're like, oh crap, I don't remember how to do this one. What I would do if it takes more than like 1 to 2 minutes, I would answer that question, like make a guess, mark it, and then go on to the next one. So instead of wasting time, spending too much time on a single problem, you need to space out your time. Hands down, do most people have to guess on some of the ACT math problems? Absolutely. But if you can minimize the amount you're guessing on, naturally you will increase your score. Number 2 is recognizing that you need to have key formulas memorized. Unlike the SAT test, the ACT math test at this time does not give a math formula sheet. Do they factor in and provide some of the more complicated formulas? Absolutely. But one of the biggest things that I see is kids not remembering simple formulas. Even if they're in calculus, they might have forgotten certain ones. So my top ones that I suggest every student memorize is very basic. It is the slope-intercept formula. It's solving for a slope, the quadratic formula, the midpoint formula, anything to do with SOHCAHTOA, and then also how to find area of a triangle, circle, and a square. Most of those you can kind of hack out of a lot of problems. And if you have those formulas memorized, that will help out substantially, especially anything with y equals mx plus b. I jokingly say in my classes, if you don't have y equals mx plus b memorized and understood, you might as well get a tattoo of it by now. Number 3 is going into this mentality on the ACT test the wrong way. So most people on the ACT math test are like, I need to answer every single problem. Not quite. Yes, you do need to fill in a blank of every single problem, but when I try to increase people's scores, especially if they're in the low 20s and need to get to the high 20s, the meat of the test is number 20 through about number 45. That 45 through 60, if you're hitting in the 20s, those questions are really hard and a lot of people struggle with them. They also include some pre-calculus concepts. So if you haven't taken pre-calc, that will kick you. So make sure that you are focusing on knocking out and doing well with those middle section problems. Because what typically happens is people feel great on the first 10, maybe the first 20, and then those middle meat problems, they just struggle, and then they waste too much time, and then they freak out and all that stuff. So take my strategy 1, where I only spend like 2 minutes per problem maximum, even if it's a pain in the butt one. But if you have study time before the test, try to get a practice test and study those middle section problems. Those are the ones that are actually going to truly move your score. Those, especially last 5, last 10, sometimes those are a kind of a wash. Number 4 is I would not get spun up on the word problems. So what I would suggest with the word problems is that you don't read the whole thing. 9 times out of 10, you don't have to. I always have my students read the question at the bottom of the word problem, and then if they don't have all the information, then they go back and read the passage. Because if you read the passage and the questions at the end, 9 times out of 10, by the time you have read the question at the end, you have completely forgotten all the information in the word problem. So you need to either just focus on the question, or focus on the question and then see what you need from the passage to get your actual information, and instead of getting spun up on those nitty-gritty details. So on the ACT, they love to add an extra fluff that is completely unnecessary on the ACT math, and they actually do this on the other sections too. And people get lost in those word problems. So really just think through what it's actually asking, and you will hopefully increase your score by just a couple of points, or even just a couple of questions, which is always great. And then number 5 is the ACT, for some reason, is obsessed with probability. I don't know why. And when I mean probability, I don't necessarily mean your stats class, because at least the students I work with, their stats classes really focus on calculator skills and all of that stuff, which is great. But on the ACT, they are in love with probability questions. So if you spend some time doing those probability questions and understanding them, that will pay off in strides before your test. A couple that I see is people mixing up the words mean and average. Those both mean the same thing. I have people who mess up not knowing what the word mode is, which is most common number, and also not even thinking about organizing numbers for finding a median. Other big things on probability that you need to know is to find probability within a problem, you need to multiply the options together. For example, let's say the word problem is, and I've seen this one very similarly before, is Susie, it has a bunch of outfit combinations to choose from. She has 3 hats, 4 shirts, and 5 pairs of pants. How many total options does she have? So what you have to do in that problem is just literally multiply the numbers together of the shoes, hats, and the pants, and that will get your total number of probability. I've seen anywhere, I saw the release September 2024 test, and I swear there had been at least 10 to 15 probability questions, and they're a little bit different from your regular stats class. Okay, so I hope you do well on your ACT test. Like and subscribe for more. And if you need one-on-one tutoring, we are in a small town in Florida, but we are also able to offer tutoring online. Thanks again.